The Gangotri Glacier, as we know, has been declining since at a rate of about 28 meters every year. So when the Gangotri Glacier starts melting, or even the other glaciers start melting, there is now greater water in the rivers. And we seem to be very happy about it, that our rivers are full of water. But in Liverpool, there's this institute called Swimmer, which works on the sustainability of water management. They've said, and I quote again, that, and the study is called How Will Climate Change Affect India's Monsoon? It was published in 2007, that the increase in summer flows will be followed by a reduction in flow as the glaciers disappear. So for the next few years, we may actually have greater water in the rivers because the glacier is melting, but after a few years when the glacier disappears or starts receding, the amount of water will naturally decrease. Water is turning out to be one of the most critical factors in South Asia. And the former Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan, said, and I quote again, "Fierce competition for fresh water may well become a source of conflict and wars in the future." If you look at the current hotspot, in fact, there is a water battle going on everywhere. If there is a problem in Tibet, it's also because it's one of the major sources of water. If there is a slight skirmish in Kashmir, it's also because it's a grand source of water, fresh water. And the Israel conflict in the Middle East is a lot about control over the Jordan River. I was in Jordan last month doing this course on media and climate change, and there everybody was saying that it's just water and nothing else, because the water resource is so scarce over there. Now, can lack of water actually lead to such conflicting situations? There's a Stockholm Environmental Research Institute which has mapped the entire freshwater resources in the world. In 1980, it placed India at a position which said it has low amounts of water. The per capita availability of water was between 2,000 to 5,000 cubic meter per year. By 2000, India had been downgraded to a very low condition, which means that India only had water between 1,000 to 2,000 cubic meters. And Pakistan, our neighboring state, was placed in disastrously low position. Its stipulation is, the formulation is that by 2020, India and South Africa, two major nations, join the club of drastically low water nations. And our per capita water availability is slated to go down by between 50 to 75%. This is also on account of growing population. It's not just climate change here, but a combination of both factors. What is this leading to? Very often I see newspaper articles which say that farmers are using the sewerage water and wastewater for cultivating fruits and vegetables. And suddenly in cities, people say, oh God, we are actually consuming vegetables and fruits which are grown on wastewater. There's an International Water Management Institute in Colombo, which is a CJIR body. It conducted a survey of 53 cities in the world. And it said that 80% of them were using untreated or partially treated wastewater. That it's not just a phenomena here, it's a global phenomena, so much so that the WHO has come out with a set of recommendations and guidelines. And the title of the guideline is Safe Use of Wastewater, Excreta and Grey Water in Agriculture and Aquaculture. It is no longer looked down upon or frowned upon. It is accepted fact that because fresh water is not available, so wastewater and excreta can be used for agriculture purposes and for aquaculture, but please have a set of guidelines in place. And while talking of Jordan and Palestine, I came across a paper there which said that in some cases, wastewater is the only water resource available to the poor level subsistence farming people. Sometimes fresh water is simply not available and they only get wastewater. Now, no discussion out here seems to be complete without the CIA. CIA causes, I don't know what all. But they came out with a report, the global report for 2015, And in that it said that 3 billion people in the world will live in water-stressed areas. And what are the water-stressed areas? It is the Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, North China, and South Asia. And while talking of these states, it says that because the majority of the rivers are interstate, water will become a source of renewed friction. And water will remain South Asia's most vital and most contested natural resource. I was looking up some UNEP publications, United Nations Environmental Programme, and they have identified 4 places in the world where you have either current conflicts due to water or potential conflicts. The first is the Tigris and the Euphrates River, which is Syria, Turkey and Iraq. The second is the Jordan River, which is Israel, Jordan, Syria and Palestine. The third and the fourth entries are critical for us. The third is Punjab rivers, India and Pakistan. Fourth is Ganges and Brahmaputra, India and Bangladesh. So according to the UNEP, 4 critical potential international water disputes, 2 of them lie in India. However, the one point which this global report also says is that while climate change would affect the stability of some nations, it is unlikely to trigger a state collapse by 2030, which means that climate change will cause a lot of friction, but they are fairly sure that no nation would collapse because of this, at least till 2030. I'm a journalist, so apart from these research papers, I also keep on looking up news items. And there are 2 very interesting news items which I came across. One is still available on the BBC website. It's a 2004 news item. It's about 2 provinces in China, adjoining provinces. They were fighting over something. Now what would, take a guess, 2 neighboring provinces fight about? Land, water, minerals, I don't know. But here they were fighting about clouds. Now you must have heard of cloud seeding, this artificial rain which is caused. What is done is that silver iodide or dry ice is sprayed on the cloud to induce precipitation so that rainfall occurs. Now from one province, a rocket was fired on a cloud and artillery was used to spray silver iodide so that the rainfall occurs in that province. And the next province started complaining, saying, this cloud was supposed to come to our territory and you fired a rocket and kept it on your side. वो कहते सी मेरा पानी चोरी हो गया मतलब बदल भी चोरी होने लग गए. There's another interesting news item on the Swiss Alps. Switzerland is a place which has the famous glaciers and the Alps and lots of tourism. It is estimated that 75% of these would disappear by 2050 due to global warming. So what will these people do? In the Andermatt Sky Resort, and there's a Gushen Glacier, the managers are now putting up insulating plastic sheet on top of the glacier to prevent it from disappearing. This is the extent to which the water problem is threatening us. I now move on from water to agriculture. We've talked of temperature, we've talked of water. But agriculture is critical for Punjab. We already have this background that Punjab may witness a decline in rains, that the Satluj basin may have lesser water in summers. We already know about the declining water table. It may not be connected to climate change, but the water availability is suddenly decreasing. What will happen to agriculture in Punjab with climate change? Now, the Department of Environment in UK, DEFRA, it says that climate change is directly related to agriculture in many ways, and the direct thing is the crop. The physiology, phenology, morphology, everything of the crop will alter. Next comes the indirect effects. The soil fertility, irrigation, pest, food and drought. And finally the indirect. If you have lesser food production, you may have malnutrition and you may have other socio-economic problems. But it's not just the availability of water, it's also temperature. With increasing temperature, the evaporation would increase, the soil moisture would decrease, the groundwater recharge would decrease, and river flows we already know. So it's a combination of increase in temperature and declining water resources that will impinge upon Punjab agriculture.